As the best jungle coach in the world, Coach East thought it would be a good idea to give all you junglers out there the 3 best jungle routes for 12.1 and potentially the entirety of Season 12 if Rito don't change anything. But it's all well and good me telling you to clear camp A, B, and C. We have to know the type of junglers each clear is good on, and sometimes your lanes will heavily influence how you clear your camps. So by the end of today's video, you will know exactly what camps to clear and on what champions, and where to path towards on the map in the first few minutes. Now before we get into these 3 clears, it's essential to lay the foundation of what's about to come. So the jungle meta has changed because Scuttle Crab is giving junglers 80% reduced experience. So the 3-minute 15 seconds timer, which is when Scuttle Crab spawns, this means a heck of a lot less. Now why is this important? Well, before this change, every champion and their mother was clearing their camps to get to the Scuttle Crab when it spawned, but because there is a lot less value in the Scuttle Crab now, we can throw that timing in the bin. So that's the first meta detail to consider. Now the second detail could be the most important part of this video, and this revolves around understanding the type of jungler you are playing and the type of jungler the enemy jungler is playing. So on your screen you can see there are 3 types of junglers. We have the level 2 gank invade style jungler, we have the level 3 gank style junglers, and then we have the full clear scaling junglers. Now determining which category your jungler and the enemy jungler falls into is critical. So obviously the first step is to understand your own champion of choice. For example, if you pick Graves, you have more early game opportunities than someone who picks Evelyn, or if you pick Shaco, you have more agency and potential impact in the early stages of a game than someone who picks Rammus. So identifying the early game strength of the champion you pick is vital because it better informs you on what clear you actually want to go with. But this alone is not enough. We then have to figure out the type of champion the enemy jungler has picked. For example, if you lock in Graves and the enemy jungler locks in Xin Zhao, your decisions are going to be different. Let's say if the enemy jungler locked in Kayn, just because Xin Zhao and Kayn don't boast the same levels of power early on. Against Xin Zhao, we probably don't have any real opportunity to invade or pressure him, but Kayn on the other hand, we should definitely look to pile the pressure on. This is always going to be the first step in any game you are in, and it can even start in Champ Select. Even players in Master and Grandmaster who have coached a Challenger have their mindset of, the enemy jungler is this champion, and that's it. They don't envision how they can potentially exploit the other jungler's weaknesses. So it becomes a game of whoever ganks better wins. In turn, this brings your teammates into the equation, and let's be honest, that's a pretty stuffed up equation if your teammates are involved in it. So by focusing on the jungle matchup, we have greater influence on its outcome because it's just us, no one else. So with this jungling backbone and new mindset, let's get into the clears and figure out the whys, whens, whos, and all that. So the first jungle clear you have to know about for Season 12 is the typical red buff and then invade on the enemy's blue buff Gromp area. So as you're clearing your red buff, you want to be finishing it towards either the Dragon Pit or Baron Pit, depending on the side of the map you're on, and then heading for the enemy's blue buff. Now which champions would benefit from such an aggressive early game clear? Well, aggressive early game junglers, of course. So if we pull up that type of jungler image, champions like Graves, Kindred, Trundle, Shaco, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, because these champions are great at 1v1ing at level 2, it makes this clear more worth than doing it as a level 2 Sejuani, for example, because you would get contacted by Riot support. And this clear becomes even more effective when the enemy jungler you are against is a weak early game champion, especially in the 1v1 department. So if we look at that nice table again, all of these champions in the full clear tier, and even some of the tankier junglers in the level 3 gank tier whose clear is a lot slower, invading these poor little creatures as soon as you can be so powerful. So what do we do when we are actually at the enemy blue buff area? Well, there are 2 possible scenarios. The enemy jungler started at this blue buff and will now be doing Gromp. The other, the enemy jungler started at their red buff and is most likely eventually pathing down towards this blue buff. Now in the first situation, our objective is very easy. The enemy jungler is doing their Gromp, so we want to kill the enemy jungler first and take the Gromp after we kill them. But sometimes you might arrive a little later than usual, so the Gromp will be very close to 450 HP, which is how much damage your smite does. So trying to last hit this with an auto attack or ability with your smite will be the priority. Otherwise the enemy jungler, well, because they get Gromp, they regain HP and deny you from using your smite so you can do the same. But there are 2 massive advantages you have when picking a fight like this. You have red buff, so the burn and slow is always going to be better than having mana regen and ability haze from a blue buff, like who cares about that? And the enemy jungler has probably used at least one of their cooldowns trying to clear the Gromp, so when you fight them they will most likely have only 1 or maybe even 0 abilities to fight back. Now I know what you're thinking, what about if the enemy bot lane helps their jungler? What about if the enemy mid laner comes as well? Well, just FF. So if the enemy jungler's teammates come to help them, yes, there is a 99% chance you cannot 1v3 or 1v4 whatever, so it's your job to read the map and get out of there without dying. Now while this is happening, it is so important to understand that the enemy bot lane is leaving their lane, which means they are giving up golden experience in the form of minions. So you might be like, what a waste of time. Really, it isn't. Even if you don't kill the enemy jungler or steal their gromp, you indirectly win bot lane, you indirectly win the map. And your camps, they're not going anywhere. Your Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, Blue, Gromp, they're chilling. But what about if the enemy jungler does indeed start at their red buff? Because this changes the dynamic of this potential 1v1. Our opponent now has red and not blue, so if we do screw up, we might die. And they will have all of their cooldowns if they run straight from their red to blue. But against these weak early game champions, a red buff doesn't make them instantly Giga OP. They are still weak. So as soon as you arrive at the enemy blue buff, start doing the buff and place a trinket over this wall so you can see the blast cone so you know if the enemy jungler is coming or not. Now while you are doing the blue buff, pull it towards the river. This gives you an easy escape if things do get sticky. Now if the enemy jungler doesn't show up, you get their blue buff. Sweet. And you can do one of two things. You can camp in this blue brush and wait for them with an ambush at the ready, or just do their gromp because your trinket is telling you, hey bro, they're not coming, so you have time to maybe take gromp as well. But it is essential to use your smite only if the enemy jungler is actually coming. If there is no sign of them, you can save your smite for a gromp. Now if the enemy jungler does appear on your trinket and they blast cone over, oh my goodness, how scary. Well, it's a level 2 Kayn, a level 2 Evelynn, kill them. And one last pointer with this red buff invade clear. On champions like Graves and Kindred, it's better because you can jump over the Dragon and Baron pits, so you evade the common pixel brush wards. And by the way guys, if you do enjoy these videos and want to learn how to play any of the junglers we mentioned in this video, the GameLeap website in the description and comment section has all the courses, guides, fun analyses you need to master these picks, so check it out, linked in the description and comment section. Now the second must-know jungle clear for Season 12, well, there are two of them, but both of them are tailored for level 3 ganking junglers. So if we look back at our nice little table, so we've got Jarvan, Elise, Talia, Rek'Sai, Zac, and you can even throw Lee Sin and Xin Zhao in here because there are going to be junglers from other tiers who can still function doing something else. Now before I show you both clears, it is imperative to understand that with both of these we are not invading, so our lanes do matter, and we have to consider whether we want to end up top side of the map or bot side of the map. So how do we do this? Well, you need to ask yourself one simple question. Do kills in the top lane matter? If they do, and it's a very snowbally lane, so it might be Darius against Riven, Zed against Jax, Camille against Fiora, then we want to influence this volatile lane as soon as we can, because whoever gets a lead, there is a big chance that top laner is going to snowball and hard carry that game. This means we would be pathing towards our top lane and therefore starting on the bottom side of the map. But if both top laners are on champions who don't need kills to be effective, so Gangplank or Malphite, Kayle or Nasus, then you really don't need to worry about going top. Even if that champion feeds, they will be sweet. It's better if you influence your bottom side of the map in games like these. So the two clears are as follows. Number 1, red, Raptors, Gromp. This clear leaves out blue buff, I know, but this is extremely popular in high elo and has been for a while. And one of the big reasons for doing this clear is that it means you don't ever have to do Krugs. Because you are resetting your Raptors early on, you can easily live off Raptors, Wolves and Gromp for the whole early game. So you don't have to spend time clearing Krugs because this can take a while and Krugs are far away from a lot of areas on the map. Now the other big reason for choosing this level 3 clear is that just like your Raptors, you reset your Gromp, and this camp gives the second most experience out of any camp, including buffs. So because this will be up sooner than blue buff, because Gromp's timer is 2 minutes 15 seconds and not a whopping 5 minutes, we can get more Gromps and therefore more experience and more levels. Now for those of you wondering why not do blue buff because of the buff itself, well first of all, you won't hit level 3 after red, Raptors blue, and you don't really need blue anyway. Unless you're a mana hungry clearing jungler like Karthus, Olaf or Fiddlesticks, who cares? And on these junglers as well, you shouldn't be doing this clear. Now the second level 3 clear involves blue, Gromp, red. This is a very standard clear and still favored by a lot of players because you secure both buffs, you reset your Gromp, and it's a very quick level 3, which is what you want on these level 3 ganking champions. So you can choose either clear, but it depends on what lane you want to path towards. Do not forget this. Now the third and final clear of the video is the easiest one of them all. And if you are enjoying this video guys, make sure to let us know by leaving a like down below. And this is for those champions who want to clear camps and scale. Fighting and ganking, they could do it, like Olaf, Kayn, Echo, Rengar, but full clearing your camps for level 4 is still the way to go. But I have two more essential tips for you if you are playing one of these champions wanting to full clear. If you are against an aggressive early game jungler who might get in your grill, there are two things you must do. The first one is to trinket your blue buff. You You could trinket the pixel brush if you're against a champion who cannot jump over the dragon and baron pit, but a blue buff trinket will always spot the enemy cheeser. And the second thing to do is to start at your red buff. Now this may sound weird, but by starting at red buff we don't allow the enemy jungler to mess with us at Gromp, and it gives us the choice when we spot the enemy jungler of invading their blue buff and simply trading sides of the map, or you might even consider collapsing on the enemy jungler with your team at your own blue buff, and if a fight does break out, you have red buff which actually does something and not blue buff. On these 4 clearers, your goal is to hit level 4 as safely as possible with 0 interruptions. This is what these 2 tips do. But what if the enemy jungler is a passive jungler early game and doesn't boast that much power? Well, we go through the same process as the level 3 ganking junglers. What side of the map do you want to be near after your full clear? Do you want to be near a Nasus, who even if you do gank him, will stand next to the CS and let you die? Probably not, but again, if the top lane matchup is explosive and kills do indeed matter, path towards that lane. Otherwise, you are heading bot side of the map. So those were the 3 jungle clears, guys, you need for Season 12. To make sure you don't miss any of our daily uploads this season, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have those notifications turned on. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Cheers.